I'm Adolph Oliver, and this is a quick review of multiplying and dividing simple fractions. Hopefully you remember that you don't need a common denominator when you multiply or divide fractions. Common denominators are only needed when you add and subtract. So the first thing here is you can always figure out the answer in a multiplication problem of fractions simply by multiplying together the tops and the bottoms. Let's do that. 10 times 3 is 30. 6 times 5 is 30. And then, of course, the standing rule in a fraction final answer, no matter how you got it, is reduce it. And of course 30 goes once here and into 30 up here. So 1 over 1, our final answer in this problem, just happens to be 1. But I think many of you remember that you can do some pre-reducing here. Folks normally call this cross-canceling. And it means that what you do is do some reducing before you do the multiply, and what that does is it keeps the numbers smaller. Now, I want to point out to you that this cross-canceling name here is not really a good name because some of you think you can only cross-cancel sideways. That's not true at all. Remember, up here, when we reduce this final 30, we reduce straight up and down. So, cross-canceling really can be anything from the bottom against anything in the top. And just to point that out to you, the first thing I'm going to reduce here is a 2 between the 10 and the 6. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Now, I take a look and see what else I can reduce. Well, we can reduce everything here. We can cross-cancel the 3 into the other 3. Remember, something from the bottom against something in the top. And, of course, the 5s cross-cancel both ways here as well. So what do I end up with in this one? After I've done all my cross-canceling, 1 times 1, which is 1 upstairs, 1 times 1, which is 1 downstairs, and, of course, 1 over 1 equals 1. That's exactly the same answer we got up above here by not doing any of the cross-canceling and reducing all at the end. But one of the things about cross-canceling is it makes the numbers smaller, so when you multiply across, there's not nearly as much work. You'd have to be reducing this anyway, so doing it to begin with in the cross-canceling is just accomplishing something you'd be required to do in the end. Okay, now, what happens when you divide fractions? Well, one of the things that we often do in math is if we come across some new process and it turns out to be one that we can easily change to something we already know, we go ahead and do that. There's enough new stuff in the algebra to learn all the time, so anytime we can change something new to something that we already know how to do, it's a good process. And of course, this is a technique that you guys learned many years ago. Here we have two fractions and they're dividing each other. Well, the thing you want to get used to before you do anything else when you have a division problem is to flip this second fraction. Later in the course, we'll show you why it's the second one that you have to flip, but just remember that for now. So we rewrite this problem as 3/8 over, and since we're going to flip that second fraction, take its reciprocal, we write it as 4 over 6. And of course, notice I put a multiplication dot here to indicate that these guys are now multiplying each other. Now, here's the thing you have to watch out for. The cross-canceling that we did above is a multiplication thing. You cannot cross-cancel division, so be careful. You see the 6 and the 8 here to begin with? Oh boy, I can cross-cancel a 2 on that. No, you can't. Same thing between the 6 and the 4 here. What happens is this. You cannot cross-cancel division. Change it first to multiplication before you even think about cross-canceling. And now at this stage, when it's in multiplication form, go ahead and cross-cancel. Well, of course we can. The 4 goes into the 8, so 4 goes once in the 4, into 8 it goes twice and the 3 goes into the 6. So 3 goes into 3 once, and in the 6 it goes twice. Well, we've reduced the whole upstairs. Only a 1 is left there. So we can go ahead and put our answer together here. 1 times 1 is 1 upstairs. 2 times 2 is 4 downstairs. The answer to this problem, 1/4. So remember again, whenever you have a division problem, flip that second fraction, the one that follows the division sign, before you do anything else. Change it to multiplication. Then you can cross-cancel. Cross-canceling is a multiplication thing. Well, let's now start looking at some example problems. Here's the first one. Notice it is, again, multiplication. And that means don't flip it. You only flip it when it's division. And we can do cross-canceling here. Well, heaven's sakes, we can cross-cancel, I think, everything. 7 goes into 7 once here. Goes into this 7 once. The 4's cross-cancel each other. Here we go. So remember, anything from the bottom can cancel against anything on the top. Well, we've been able to cancel everything here. What do we end up with? Simply 1/1, which, of course, equals the final answer, 1. Okay. Let's take a look at another example. Here we've got 9/10 times 7/9. Again, it's already in multiplication form, so we don't have to flip anything. That's only a division thing. So since we have it in multiplication form, we can take a look and see if there's any cross-canceling. And of course, you can see the 2 9s are going to cancel each other. So here they go. The 7 and the 10, there's nothing common that way. So we end up here simply with, on the top, 1 times 7, which is 7. On the bottom, 10 times 1, which is 10. Always double check to see if it's possible to reduce anything else. And the 7 and the 10 don't have anything common to be able to reduce. So we leave our answer as 7/10. Okay, here's another multiplication example. And again, since it's in multiply, we can go ahead and do any cross-canceling right to begin with. Well, the 5 doesn't go into anybody upstairs, and neither does the 7, so here's an example where we don't have anything that we can cross-cancel. Simply then, multiply the tops and the bottoms. 8 times 2 is 16. 5 times 7 is 35. And again, if you double-check this quickly, the only thing that'll reduce in the 35 is a 5 and a 7, and it won't go into 16, either one of those. So we're stopped right there. Okay, well, here's a situation where we have a whole number times a fraction. And again, anytime you have multiplication or division problem with fractions in it, it's a good idea then to make fractions out of everybody, so remember who's on top and who's on the bottom. So here we are. I made a fraction out of this 2 by putting a 1 underneath it. That's a trick you can do with any whole number. Okay, now we see that the denominators are 1 and 4, and the numerators are 2 and 5. And we do have something we can cross-cancel here. A 2 will go into the 2 upstairs here, and it'll go into the 4 twice. Well, the remaining 2 down here won't reduce into the 5, so at this stage we simply put together our final answer. 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 2 is 2, and again, double check this to make sure there's nothing that can be reduced. 2 will not reduce into 5. This is an improper fraction, meaning it has a value greater than 1. The numerator is larger than the denominator. But again, in the algebra, for simple problems like this, we can leave the answer as an improper fraction. Well, here's our first division example we've run into. And remember, you've got to watch out. Since this is division, you cannot reduce these two 7s. So don't even think about it. First thing you do, flip the second fraction, which means rewrite the problem. The first fraction stays the way it is, 9/7. We're going to change it to multiplication, so there's the multiplication dot. Now make sure that you do flip this second guy. Here we go, 4/7. Okay, now, once we flip that second guy, now we're all set to do any cross-canceling. Well, we've got 7s downstairs, and they won't reduce into or cancel against either of the guys upstairs. So all we can do at this stage, put together our final answer. Upstairs, 9 times 4 is 36. Downstairs, 7 times 7 is 49. And there it is. Okay, here's another division example for us. And remember, first thing you do with a division problem like this is immediately change it to multiplication. Keep the first fraction the way it is, 6/7, but change the second guy by flipping him, taking the reciprocal. And once we've done that, the problem then becomes multiplication. That's why I've got that multiplication dot there. Now, once it's in multiplication form, see if you can reduce anything. Well, the two 6's will cross cancel. 6 goes once here and goes once in the other 6. The 5 and 7 don't have anything in common. So now we can simply just multiply these together. 1 times 5 is 5. 7 times 1 is 7. And 5/7 then our final answer. Okay, well, remember, as we've said a number of times now, when you got a division problem here in fractions, the first thing you do is rewrite this guy quickly. So let's do that. Keep the first fraction the way it is, 10/9. Now, when we flip the second guy, it's going to change it to multiplication. So there's my multiplication dot. Make sure now that you do flip this second fraction. Here he is. I put the 5 that was downstairs upstairs, the 6 was upstairs downstairs, so I've taken a reciprocal or flipped this guy. Okay, now when we have it in multiplication form, we can check to see if there's anything that can be cross-canceled. Well, a 2 will go into both the 10 and the 6. 2 goes into 10 5 times, 2 goes into 6 3 times. There's nothing else to reduce. Upstairs we just have 5s, and neither one of those will go into the 9 and the 3 downstairs. So at this stage, put the final answer together. 5 times 5 is 25 upstairs. 9 times 3 is 27 downstairs. And there we are. Okay, well, let's look at one last example here. It's a division problem again, but what we've got is a whole number in front, so as we've done before, make a fraction out of that by putting a 1 underneath. Now, once again, don't even think about cross-canceling the 5 and the 10 here, because this is division. You can't cross-cancel division. You got to have it to multiplication first. So let's do that conversion. The first fraction stays the way it is, 10/1. We're going to change it to multiplication by flipping the second fraction. Now make sure that you flip it. The 5 goes upstairs and the 8 comes downstairs. Okay, now you can think about doing some cross-canceling. And there is a 2 that goes into both the 10 and the 8. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 2 goes into 8 4 times. The 4 won't reduce into either of the 5's up above. So we put together our final answer. Upstairs, 5 times 5 is 25. Downstairs, 1 times 4 is 4. And again, we can leave it in improper form, just like that.